Good day, Canada. Good afternoon and good night, Bangladesh. And thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Alex Davis, and I'm the manager and partner of LP Group Canada. And as we've promised, today we're going to talk about the fraud, in particular immigration fraud, how to avoid immigration fraud, what it is, and how to prove that your immigration consultants are genuine. Here is a brief agenda for today. For those who don't know us, I would give a brief overview of who we are, what we do, how do we work. Then we would go to the definitions of what is an immigration fraud and typical fraud schemes in Bangladesh. I would give you the most common examples. Then we would go ahead and touch the base on who are the reliable consultants and how to prove that your consultant is working legally and doing the legal job for you. What to do if you're a victim of immigration fraud schemes, negative consequences of typical fraud schemes, and last but not least, I would share with you our direct contacts of our partners in Bangladesh and specifically our own contacts as well, so you can directly address your questions and concerns to us. Now, here's a brief overview of who we are and how we work. The LP Group Canada has been established in 1999 in the capital of Ontario, city of Toronto. We're the legal team working only with immigration and visa cases. We do not practice any other subject of the law. We work with the difficult cases, appeals, rejection management, previous visa refusals. All of our team is fully licensed. Each one of us has at least 10 years of immigration practice. We are working with all types of visas, including the temporary resident ones, study permits, work permits, business immigration, and family immigration as well. So far, we got 2 offices in Toronto and in Markham. And for slightly less than 16 years of our work, we've been lodged over 8,400 of successful visa cases. As I've promised, we're going to the definition and what is an immigration fraud. Immigration fraud means any scam related to issuing and specifically to promising to issue any type of visa to our country, which includes, of course, work permits, study permits, permanent and residency visas. It includes business immigration. It includes investor immigration visas. It's important to understand one simple thing. That's a general rule of thumb. Only Citizenship of Canada, shortly CIC, is responsible for issuing all kinds of visas to Canada. No one, absolutely no one, including the lawyer, your immigration consultant, any team involved in the work, in processing with you, cannot whatsoever promise you or guarantee you issuing a visa to our country. When someone, a firm or an individual, promises to you or receives money from you but does not comply with the Canadian immigration law and procedures, this is an immigration fraud. Now, here is a typical example of what is and what is not a fraud at all. Say a company takes money from you, promising that you would 100% receive your visa, but never ever files your application. Obviously, this is a fraud. And by the way, this is a typical example. We've had a case similar to this one about 6 months ago. That was in India. The person paid outrageous $16,000 to find out eventually that his case has never been lodged in Canada, and the company, which of course filed quote to quote filed it or took money from him, has disappeared. At the same time, say if you hired a licensed company, it's important to license to apply for a Canadian visa on your behalf, and your visa application was refused for a just reason. So the visa officer for some reason has found out that you are inadmissible to Canada due to the lack of documents or evidences provided. This is not a fraud. Simple enough. Of course, immigration fraud scheme source, they vary from country to country. In Bangladesh, Firms obviously they exploit the low awareness of Bangladeshi people. They exploit the desperate desire to move for a better life. Therefore, there are lots and lots of cases where people from Bangladesh were victims of immigration fraud. Our goal as a company, our goal as partners who are working with us in Bangladesh is to warn you and raise specific awareness. Immigration to Canada is not an easy thing, but not necessarily. It has to be expensive and not necessarily it has to be defrauded. Not necessarily you should be a victim of fraud or pay outrageous money for nothing. Fact. CIC Citizenship and Immigration has the dedicated anti-fraud unit dealing with visa cases in Bangladesh. It's very important to mention that this unit does not exist in every single country due to the fact that there are lots and lots of fraud schemes and lots of situations where people were defrauded. Such a unit exists in Asia and specifically in Bangladesh. Now we are going to the most common situations which happen in your country. The very first one, probably you're aware of it, collecting money and breaking all communication with the client. Absolutely exists probably everywhere. From what I know, working with people from India, from Bangladesh, from Nepal, from Asian countries, at least 1 out of 10 has been a victim or knows somebody who has been a victim of such a fraud scheme. Second case, producing fake Canadian visas. That includes, of course, work permits, study permits, that includes LMIA or formerly known LMOs. And typically, what we experienced through the last few years, say 5-7 years ago, quality of such documents was pretty poor. Nowadays, it gets better and better, so you have to be aware of the fact that there are people who are preparing those fake documents, and that's probably one of the worst scenarios, to be defrauded by the fact that you received a fake visa and you're attempting to be going on a plane and you're not admissible due to the fact that your visa is fraudulent. I do have a couple of more examples, quite recent ones, by the way, and those are pretty interesting. The first one was a few months ago. That was with the express entry application. When a person has been denied and his application was refused due to the fact that, his data provided initially did not correspond to the documents which were sent to the CIC after the invitation to apply has been sent. To put it simple, you fill up the questionnaire forms, you do it by yourself, you're trying to make your profile look as appealing as possible. You receive your invitation to apply, you send the original documents to the CIC, and your application is refused. Why? Simply because your initial forms or your initial application has not been prepared and with the proper due diligence. It has not been done with accordance, with all, I would say, with all honesty, and obviously CIC just rejects such an application and refuses. Now, how to tell if your consultant or a person who's working with you is a reliable one? That's a rule of thumb to avoid immigration fraud. Deal only with the 100% trusted immigration consultants acting with the full compliance with the Canadian immigration law. What does it mean? That your immigration consultant is licensed, operates from Canada, you can check his or her license, you can make sure and verify that the immigration company is reliable, and you can make sure that they would do their due diligence. How you can be absolutely sure of it? Well, pretty simple. You cannot tell by yourself if an immigration company adheres to the Canadian immigration law or not, but ICCRC can. ICCRC stands for Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Council. That's the organization which is authorized specifically by the Government of Canada to keep an eye on immigration consultants. These organizations actually license us. These organizations make sure that we do not breach the law. It provides the consultants the specific guidelines how to deal with the clients, how to avoid fraud, how to make sure that the client's application is lodged properly, and most importantly, this organization makes sure that your consultant, the person, your expert who is working with your case, would comply on each and every step with the Canadian immigration law. Going forward, now with the ICCRC members, they are allowed by law, legally allowed by law, to provide immigration services to Canada worldwide, which includes all the country, including Bangladesh, of course, which automatically means for you that no matter if you got a local company in Bangladesh or you don't, hopefully you do. I mean, it's always convenient to deal with the local people, right? But your case would be lodged here in Canada by the person responsible for it, by the person specifically licensed by the ICCRC, by the individual whose credentials you can check, double check. So making sure that tomorrow those people won't run away for you, they won't disappear, and they would take care of your application properly. Always retain the legal ICCRC member for your immigration and visa services in Bangladesh. It's a rule of thumb for you to avoid fraud. Come into a company, say you're coming to our local partners in Bangladesh, absolutely skilled and responsible people, make sure that still your case would be lodged by the ICCRC member in Canada. Coming to somebody else, ask questions. Right? That is your money, that's your reputation, that is your case. Be aware of the fraud and know how to deal with that. It's very important to avoid those scams in order to be in Canada in a feasible future. What happens if you are a victim of the immigration fraud? This is a very simple 3 steps which would allow you, even if you were defrauded, even if somebody says, say, took your money and ran away, right? There are 3 steps which you could do to restore your application. First of all, to recover your money and documents, call the police, apparently, right? Call the local people to chase them. Get your money back. To do justice on the unscrupulous consultant, say on a person who has defrauded you and ran away or promised 100% to lodge your visa and afterwards did not do the due diligence, get to the CIC and report fraud. If you got a non-licensed consultant, use this link. That is my personal request to all of you. If you would like to help, if you would like to change this situation specifically, report to CIC those who are working illegally. We know there are lots and lots of companies in Asia, in Bangladesh in particular, who do that, who are not using the legal services or claiming that they would be using those legal services and never do that. Report them. Report fraud. Remedy the situation. I mean, specifically the situation with your visa case. Say somebody has lodged it, you have no idea what is in there, how to process it further on. If there has been done anything, would it damage your reputation? Would it damage your case in the eyes of the visa officer? Hire the Canadian immigration specialist, a licensed one. Make sure that this person would be aware of your situation and would be able to fix it. Okay? There are 3 major benefits of hiring every single ICCRC member. Your visa application with the ICCRC consultant is 100% legal. Services are provided by the professional Canadian specialist. With all due respect, I have no idea how local people sitting anywhere in India, in Nepal, and Bangladesh could be aware of each and every particular or specifics of Canadian immigration law. You have to be in Canada, you have to be the person who's working with that. So make sure that you're hiring the Canadian specialist, knowing and fully aware of that. Your ICCRC consultant is responsible for the services which he or she provides to you. It's important. There are 2 questions to ask every company you are coming for immigration. Do they have the ICCRC member or not? Obviously, if not, run away. Do they guarantee your visa issuance? Vice versa. If the answer is yes, run away. This is the fraud. Remember the first slides? No one, absolutely no one, except for the CIC, Citizenship and Immigration, can promise or issue a visa for you. Right? No one can give you a 100% promise. No one can guarantee your visa issuance. Now, moving forward, what would be the negative consequences of immigration fraud? Obviously, that's the loss of money, right? The loss of original documents, and last but not least, ban on entering Canada for 2 years. And here I would like to stop specifically and give you one more example. It's not a pretty common one, but you might see that this situation would change over and over in a few years probably. There is a case which was rejected and the person was accused of misrepresentation, means he has deliberately adjusted or changed his visa data in order to come to Canada. And the reason for such was that it has been found out that the person has been using the unauthorized representative from another country. What does it mean for you? The law is the law, and for every single visa application, whether it is immigration or temporary resident visa, you have to be aware that you're signing an affidavit in a form which states that either you're using the legal representative, means ICCRC member, and in that case you are mentioning his or her license number, first and last name in your application, or in another circumstance, you are not using anyone, but in that case, you are claiming that you were not using anyone's services specifically. The third situation, which is pretty common for Asia, when you're using so-called quote-to-quote local consultants who have nothing to do with Canada, right? And they're just aware of the fact that you get money and are looking forward to share it with them, to put it simple. In that case, it could be easily found out by the officer that if you were using such people, unlicensed one, the officer can ban you from entering Canada because this fact could be considered as misrepresentation. Important to be aware. And last but not least, the contacts where and who can help you. My direct, Davidson at Low Point. Please feel free to send us an email, to send me a short notice with the questions, with whatever inquiry you might have. Apparently, that should be connected with the Canada. Our local partners, absolutely knowledgeable people. Please feel free to address your questions and concerns to them or come to their office. Absolutely professional people. We're absolutely glad working with them, and I'm happy that we got such knowledgeable people who share our opinion about changing the situation in Bangladesh and assisting you all guys to stay away from fraud. And of course, on this point, I would like to thank you all. Thanks again for listening. It's quite a pleasure to see how many people have joined and listened to us. Our webinars are conducted on a regular basis on every single Thursday. And thank you all again. Our next webinar would be on a study to Canada, how to do it right. We would be covering topics on universities, colleges, private schools, language courses, how to do it right, how to lodge your application, make sure that you do it correctly in the beginning, and how your legal team would be able to guide you and assist you in that. Feel free to ask me questions. I'm getting back to contacts one more time. Write it down if necessary. This video would be available for a while. I probably will keep it for a week. And on this particular point, thank you all one more time, and goodbye.